Good morning, everyone. My name is Donnie Glover, publisher of BeMoreNews.com and also BlackUSA.News. And we're here to get an early jump on today's Black Contracting or Contractors College, forgive me. We're really excited to be here. There is so much to talk about. We have some wonderful guests today. And so just bear with me as I get the ball rolling and share to a couple of networks. It's been a really, it's been 4 weeks of this, 4 weeks. And each week gets better. We've been promised to potentially go beyond today and do this every Saturday, as clearly minority business enterprise is an issue that deserves our attention. Real simple. We can vote all day long, but if we are not parlaying our voting, our political power into economic development, then it's absolutely meaningless. Democrat, Republican, Independent, it doesn't matter. If our votes are not being translated into economic development for our community, then really what is the point? And so today, and for the past 4 weeks, today being the 4th week, we've been holding this Contractors College. And the idea, the goal is to help empower Black businesses. Now, let me just say one disclaimer. We are referring to on a regular basis minority business enterprise. And for the record, by definition, a minority business enterprise is defined as a business enterprise owned and controlled by an African American, Hispanic American, Asian American, or Native American. And on that same note, a women's business enterprise is defined as a business enterprise owned and controlled by a woman, which includes non-minority females, as well as a woman who is part of any of the above mentioned minority groups. But for the sake of this discussion, let me be clear. We're talking about Black business. Bear with me a second. Yes, sir. I don't see you, buddy. I think you're in the wrong link. The last 2 digits are 8 and U. So I'm coming at you. Hold on. Let me just make sure I got you while I got it, because I actually started. So they're looking at me now, Doug. Oh, come on, don't act up, man. Why that keeps happening? You know, that happened to us before. D Black, sure. Okay, link. Paste. Oh, this computer just wants to act up this morning. Okay. LINK. Okay, you should have it. Okay. So again, now what I wanted to say to you as it relates to MBE is a lot of times we as people of color, we get lost in the sauce when they say minority. It used to mean Black people. And so on that note, let me just share with you a little history going back to 1978. And I'm very proud to acknowledge the late Congressman Perrin J. Mitchell, native Baltimorean. As a matter of fact, 2 days ago was his birthday, April 29th, God rest his soul. But back in 1978, Congressman Mitchell was elected as a Democrat to the 92nd Congress, reelected 7 succeeding congressional terms from 71 to 87, served the 7th Congressional District, was at the House at large whip, a member of the Committee on Banking, Finance, and Urban Affairs, the chair of the Committee on Small Business, a member of the Subcommittee of Minority Business Enterprise and General Oversight, the chair of the Task Force on Minority Enterprise, a member of the Subcommittee on Access to Capital and Business Opportunities, a member of the Joint Economic Committee, a member of the Congressional Black Caucus, founding member, I should mention, and the chair of the Subcommittee on Minority Economic Development and Housing. And so with that said, I'm proud to say that Maryland, my state, started the MBE programs right here in the United States. State of Maryland is a national leader in MBE, Minority Business Enterprise. Sadly, we've not made much progress. Now, granted, Baltimore specifically is a national leader when it comes to minority business enterprise, but that's not saying a lot when you look at the numbers. Now, I mean, it's weird. So as bad as things are in Baltimore, as poorly as the system is working for minority business enterprises / Black businesses, Baltimore's still a national leader. Imagine that. Go figure. And so for the past 4 weeks, including today, we'll be talking with people from around the country who have experience in the realm of MBE, of minority business enterprise. And the goal, as always, is to help empower our businesses. We want to share with you resources. We want to share with you connections. We want to share with you ideas and also inspiration. Running a business is no easy thing. It's challenging to anyone and everyone. But if you're Black, it's 2-3 times as hard. All you have to do is look at the national statistics. Pandemic, COVID, 41% of Black businesses died. They went out of business, compared to 17% as it relates to our white counterparts. And most of us conclude that it has to do with structural racism. When the relief first round of stimulus money came out for businesses, the big boys ate the lion's share. The big boys ate the lion's share of the first round of monies. The second time around, it was more egalitarian. It was spread out such that the little guy could get some regardless of race. But initially, it was only the big dogs that ate, and everyone noticed it. And kudos to the new Biden-Harris administration for leveling that playing field and making opportunities available for more people in America. Come on. Oh, got a busy German Shepherd back here. You want to say hello? You can't say hello. So we're waiting on a couple of our guests, and I'm not quite sure what link my friends have gone to, but I seem to have lost them. So you bear with us a second. Meanwhile, we'll be plugging some entities. Let me just share this information. I went to a bank yesterday. I'm not going to call the bank out, but the branch manager told me that they did not know about PPP and the EIDL. And I was surprised. I was really surprised. Actually, 2 banks told me, two different banks, and I'm going to leave their names off the table, but they were not helping businesses, helping solo contractors get access to this PPP money and the EIDL money. If I'm not mistaken, the EIDL money is by way of the Small Business Administration, SBA. But in fact, you can. And if you're having any challenges, I can recommend here in Baltimore, M&T Bank Stadium, M&T Bank. Of course, our stadium is named after them. But That's what it is. So without further ado, we're going to get to the get down. And we have joining with us the one and only Mark Spencer. Mark, how long do you have to share with us today?
As long as you need.
Okay, good deal. Pull your camera down a little bit. You got to look at.
Yeah.
You're a little new to this.
I'm always technically challenged.
No, you're not alone, buddy. You're not alone.
How's that?
That's just wonderful.
Good.
We also have with us Latanya Hawkins. How are you, Latanya?
I am doing well. How are you?
I'm outstanding. What are you representing at one of the chambers?
No, Construction Resource Center.
The Construction Resource Center.
Yes.
Tammy and Doug spoke so highly of you.
Very nice.
And they will be joining us momentarily.
Okay. Okay. Thank you so much. We appreciate the opportunity. Thank you for having us.
The pleasure's all mine. And you're in Oakland?
We're in Oakland.
Wow. So this is Mark Spencer. Mark Spencer is here in Maryland with me.
Good morning. Good morning. Nice to meet you.
Good morning. And so you're in Oakland. You're up very early.
Very early. Yeah, it's about 2 minutes to 7.
Wow.
Well, we'll make it worth your while.
Oh,
we also like to welcome John Scott. How are you, John?
I'm well, thank you. How are you?
Good, good. John, who are you representing today?
I'm representing everyone and anyone who has a civil rights claim.
Good deal. That makes you an attorney?
I'm a civil rights attorney, been doing it since 1977.
Good deal, good deal.
Before
well, Doug,
many of you were born.
No, I was born in 65.
And my former client and friend, Doug Blackshear, asked me to participate.
Well, you got the link. Doug sent you the link, but Doug can't find the link apparently. So we're moving a little slow.
Well,
Deborah, you want to introduce yourself?
Good morning, everyone. I'm Deborah Keller Green here in Baltimore with the Greater Baltimore Black Chamber.
Good morning, Deborah.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
there he is.
And now we have our fearless leader.
Good morning.
I think we are all technologically challenged, folks.
Yeah.
Yes, I got.
So Doug, you accepted.
Yes. Good morning.
Doug, I just want to let you know that Ron Busby will be joining us momentarily, and we're going to allow him to get in, get out, and share a few words. Is anyone opposed to prayer?
Oh, I have to. I would have to have to log back out and log back in. Okay.
Well, we're gonna. Why don't you do that? We're gonna just have a brief moment of silence and say a brief prayer to get started. Trying to wait on Lynn. There you go, Lynn. All right, Lynn. Good morning, Lynn. Lynn, are you opposed to prayer? Wanted to get started with a prayer this morning. Is that okay?
Okay.
You okay with starting off with prayer, Lynn?
Sure.
Okay, good deal. All wise and almighty God, we just thank you for another day. We ask that you bless this college. We pray that we can touch some people, inform some people, and inspire some people. In your mighty name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
You know, big brother Mark, my daddy told me if you keep God first, you can do anything but fail.
Well, look, as we all know, we need all the help we can get.
All right, so before we get started, good deal.
Oh, well,
So, Ron, let me just tell you who we have. We have Mark Spencer. Mark Spencer is Inspector General for the Prince George's County Police Department.
Morning. Law enforcement, sheriff department.
We also have John Scott. I think you know that's your home guy. Lynn Turner, and then Latanya Hawkins from the Construction Resource Center. So Ron, we
Good morning,
promised to
Ron.
let
And
you
John,
start off and
and don't forget John Scott.
bless our contractor scholar.
All right. Well, good morning,
Absolutely,
everyone.
Attorney John.
Yeah, hi, everyone.
Good morning. Good morning.
Well, Donnie asked me to join you guys this morning. I'm not really sure exactly what he wanted me to share, but I'm truly blessed to be with you guys this morning. Donnie has become a very good supporter of the U.S. Black Chamber. Many of you I have not had the opportunity to meet. So again, let me introduce myself. My name is Ron Busby. I'm the president and CEO of the U.S. Black Chambers, Inc. Headquartered here in Washington, D.C. We were founded in 2009, right after the election of President Barack Obama. I moved here from Washington, D.C. I moved here from Phoenix, Arizona. When I came, we had 6 chambers. Today, we have over 149. We're in 42 states, including Toronto and 6 countries in Africa, with over 390,000 Black-owned businesses. And I remember, I was telling Donnie earlier, I remember when I first came to DC, it was in March of 2009. That was one of the worst winters that the DC area had seen. We had snow 5-6 feet deep. And I remember riding one of the double-decker buses that the tourists ride here in DC, and I was outside up top. And I was just so inspired that the temperature didn't even bother me. But I remember looking at the license plates of the vehicles, and it said taxation without representation. And I was like, damn, that's who we've been. That's who Black business owners have been all these years. We've been paying into a system that really does not represent our voices, our concerns, our issues. And I was like, God, that's it. That's who I want to be when I grow up of sorts. And so we created what we call our 5 pillars. And our first pillar is really around advocacy, the policies that are created here in Washington, D.C. And many times there's a huge disconnect between what happens here in Washington, D.C. and local communities and business owners across the country. There's just no even imagination of what happens, as well as what could potentially happen. And we saw that just last year under the Payroll Protection Plan, where policy was created without ever taking into consideration the needs of the business owner. If you remember, the name of the policy was called the Payroll Protection Plan. And it was really created to protect the needs of the employee versus the needs of the business owner, of the employer. And so for many Black-owned businesses, we know we don't have a great deal of payroll, but it's a misnomer that we don't have employees. That's a lie. That's a lie. We employ people, we just do them in our own ways. We have 1099s. We have contractors, subcontractors, family members, cash and carry businesses. But to say that we don't have employees is a total lie. And so when the program was created, many of our businesses were left out. Actually, we did a survey across the country, and 76% of Black firms said they either got no funds or they got far less than what they needed. And so our main thrust here in Washington, D.C. is to ensure that policy is being included and created for and by Black people. Our second one is really access to capital. You ask any small business owner in the country what his number one concern is, and you'll say access to capital. But if you ask a Black business owner, they would say their number 1, number 2, and number 3 concern is access to affordable and available capital. I came from Phoenix, Arizona, and I had a business where I had several hundred employees and was very involved in my church home there in Phoenix, Arizona, Pilgrim Rest Baptist Church. And I thought about creating a payday loan system because we didn't have banks in South Phoenix where Black people lived. There was no banks. I had over 400 employees, many of them Black and brown. And when I talked to them, they didn't have bank accounts. They're like, banks won't give us credit. bank's not in my neighborhood. We go to cash advance stores. We understand that they're going to take, a large percentage of our funds, but it is what it is. And so I thought to myself, like, man, I could do that and charge a lot less and keep my people engaged and employed. And needless to say, we got a lot of political pushback, but it is still a major concern of Black and brown communities. And so when I came here to Washington, D.C., we created very affordable. We have our own credit card. I don't have it in my wallet. We have our own credit card through a Black bank, Liberty Bank, which is the largest Black bank in the country. Interest rates at 9.98% with a credit score as low as 580. Let me say it again. 9.98% with a credit score as low as 580. The average African American is paying above 20% for credit. And that's got nothing to do with education, acumen, business skills. I could be a homeowner, own my home. I could have a college degree, and have all the skills needed. I could have a white peer, and John, nothing against you or anyone in your community.
Hey, we deserve it, dude.
No, I'm laying out the facts. We did a survey with Rutgers
You're preaching
University.
to the choir.
We did a whole report with Rutgers University in 2014, and we found that everything being equal, same credit score, I could own my home, my white neighbor could rent his home. I could be a college degree, my neighbor white could be a high school degree. We would go in with the same business plan, nothing different except for the names on the application. We would go in asking for the same amount of money, and let's assume it's $100,000. Rutgers University and the U.S. Black Chamber found that the Black-owned business is going to get $40,000, pay 20% interest. My white business partner or neighbor is going to get the $100,000 and pay half the rate. And as a Black community, we go back and say, thank you, Lord. Thank you, Jesus, for that $40,000. Let me go and do what I need to do, because as a community, we have known and been known to do much with very little. That also is a negative impact, because we know that 90% of businesses go out of business within the first year. And it's got very little to do with their acumen, their skill set, how hard they work. Is really, they did not have enough money to start. And so when there's any type of obstacle, any type of challenge, they end up forced to go out of business. And then what we find is that same banker that took our business plan, that gave us 40, will give our white neighbor the additional dollars that they need along with our business plan to be successful. So the U.S. Black Chamber works extremely hard. Yesterday, in fact, we did a seminar with the SBA on the restaurant revitalization program. If you know of anyone that owns a restaurant, a nightclub, a food truck, a catering business, cooking at the church, making cupcakes for their kid, there's $28 billion that will hit the streets on Monday at noon. Now, we heard a lot of challenges from the payroll protection plan that Black folk did not have their fair share at it. We all know that it was a $349 billion program that was announced on a Friday afternoon. And by Saturday afternoon, of the $349 billion, $250 billion had been awarded to 50 publicly traded white firms. Never asked, did you have to lay off anybody? Were you affected by COVID-19? Did your revenues drop? No conversations, no accountability, awarded the dollars. And by the time Black folk and small businesses across the country were able to apply, the funds were all gone. And so on the restaurant revitalization program, we said effective Monday, the first 21 days are set aside for minority restaurant owners. So we get to go in front of the line as opposed to waiting in line like everyone else. $28 billion, but know that it's going to go quick. You can get anywhere up to $5 million, and you don't have to spend the money until 2023. Again, you can pay off credit card debt. You can pay off your rent going forward, so you can allocate money to pay your mortgage for the next 2 years. There's a lot of flexibility in this program, and those are the things that we're doing to make sure our businesses across the country know about it. Our third one is really around contracting. I'm a former business owner, former 8A business owner, and I was in an industry that everybody thought, man, you must be crazy. I was in janitorial. I had a cleaning business. I had left corporate America to go back home to take care of a family business. I was successful at growing it from 5 employees to over 1,500. We were the largest Black janitorial service in the country. But mind you, when I left corporate America, where I was a senior VP at Coca-Cola, had worked at IBM, had worked at Xerox, had worked in technology, I moved back to Oakland. For those of you that know your geography, Oakland ain't but an hour away from what was then called San Jose. It wasn't called Silicon Valley in the 90s. It was San Jose, and San Jose was a very rough community for minorities that lived there, Hispanic and Black communities. It was never what it is today. But although I had been a senior executive, I could not even get an interview to empty the trash in Silicon Valley. Literally could not get any takers, any interested companies to give us the contract for janitorial service. Now, mind you, we had grown our firm, started at $150,000, had a plan to double the size every year, got to a $7 million firm, ended up reading a book by one of Donnie's homeboys, Reginald Lewis out of Baltimore, Maryland, and the name of the book is Why Should White Guys Have All the Fun? And it changed the way I looked at doing business, from growing my firm to acquiring firms. And so I spent the next 6 months in Oakland and San Jose looking for a firm that really met the needs of what I was looking for, found the right size firm. It was doing about 8 million. I was doing about 7-8 million. I knew more about this company than they did. I had interviewed all their employees, all their vendors, all their contractors, their bank. I knew everything about the guys. I had been sending letters down to the guys every week, trying to get an appointment, calling, and this was before the internet, so I was faxing. I was actually putting letters in FedEx packages, didn't have enough money to send it to FedEx, so I would drive it down there, drop it off in a FedEx package, hoping that they would open it up. Weeks and months had gone by, really no response. On Thanksgiving Eve, I called down and an old white guy answered the phone. The 2 people that I thought on the phone were 2 young white guys. The old white guy answered the phone, and I said, sir, my name is Ron. I'm trying to meet the owners, let's just say Bob and Joe. And he said, well, those are my nephews. I'm trying to get rid of this company. If you can get down here in the next 45 minutes, man, we can have a conversation. Those of you that know, that live in the Bay Area, know there ain't no way you can drive from Oakland to San Jose in 45 minutes. But as God was my witness, I made it. I got to San Jose that afternoon, and literally within a 3 to 4 hour conversation, I was able to buy his farm. So I went from $7 million to $15 million overnight, ultimately got to $21 million. I say all that to say we as a community have to be creative in how we grow our businesses, and we can't fly the plane and pass out the peanuts. You either got to be the pilot or you got to be the stewardess. You can't do both jobs. And so I've always felt, even when I was creating businesses, I always created an organizational chart. So I knew all the jobs and responsibilities. Now, my name may have been in every box, but I knew the roles of what I was attempting to create. And as I was going out to look to grow my business, I always made sure that I was filling in those boxes as we grew, and I ended up becoming successful. But the U.S. Black Chamber looks at contracting really in 3 different buckets. The first one is, where is the federal government spending its money? They're the largest procurer, purchaser in the country. And if you really look at it, the richest man in the world became that way because of federal government contracts. Elon Musk is a billionaire because of his contracts with the federal government. Donald Trump's father became a billionaire because of his federal government contracts. We've got to make sure that we're playing in the places and spaces that give us the largest opportunity. And I say that because the day before I became an 8A certified company, I was a large firm bidding on contracts in the thousands of dollars, sometimes even the hundreds of thousands of dollars. The day I became 8A certified, literally the next day I was bidding on contracts in the millions of dollars. You just got to figure out, where do you want to play? In what space do you want to compete? I started off competing for $100 contracts because that was where I was comfortable and was going to give me the opportunity. But over the years, I realized it took the same amount of effort, same type of proposal to get $1 million contract as it did to get a $100 contract. Second space that we really look at is corporate America. And the U.S. Black Chamber has a program, a committee called our Corporate Advisory Council. We have 60 plus corporations that have all raised their hands saying we're going to attempt to spend 15% of our revenue with Black-owned firms. But Donnie, usually what they say is, Ron, I'd love to do more business with Black folk, but we can't find them. And if we can, they don't have the size and the scale. And a lot of that is true. We go to corporations now and say, hey, we want you to do business with us. And they say, okay, Ron, sure. We're going to commit to spending 15%. Well, 15% may be, $5 billion. And when they come looking for contract opportunities, they say, hey, man, I need somebody that can cover the United States, that's got bonding, that's got insurance, that's got capability, that's got 10 years experience. And many times we just don't have those firms. And what I tell everybody is, we don't need more small businesses. We don't need another mom and or pop. We need mom and pops to do more collaboration, more joint ventures, more consortiums, and where it makes sense, acquisitions. Let's buy somebody. Right now, we lost 41% of Black businesses last year. To me, I said, that's a good thing, because that means now that there are businesses out there that are on their last leg that are looking for you to help them out, right? There are many small businesses out there that don't know how they're going to make payroll next 2 weeks, and you may have the solution for them. I say all the time, if you're a good writer and someone else is a good marketer and someone else is a good producer and someone else has good content, come together to create a business versus you being a good writer, you being a good producer, you being a good content carrier. We need businesses of size and scale. And so we created what we call our Buy Black directory, BYBLACK.US. And I'm going to spend a little bit of time talking about that because that's where we can find you. And then and the third piece of that leg on contracting, and Donnie has heard me talk a lot about this over the years, and that is, we as a Black community always talk about, we got $1 trillion of spend power. We spend $1 trillion. That's usually not us saying that. That's usually corporate America saying Black folk have $1 trillion of spend power. How do we market to them to make sure they're spending that with us? And we're saying we have to change that conversation to say, we have $1 trillion. How can we keep that $1 trillion in our community to make sure that we have sustainability and we're buying from each other? And so part of the Buy Black platform is a directory of sorts. Yes, you can find Black-owned businesses there, but more importantly, it's providing your resources, contracting opportunities, where funding is, and allows you to be certified. Let me say this. I came to Washington, D.C., and I ain't never called myself a minority. I'm from Oakland. I left Oakland. I went to a HBCU. I live in Bowie, Maryland. No disrespect, John, but I ain't a minority. I ain't got no white folk in my neighborhood. I didn't go to college with white folk. I didn't grow up with white folk. I am black all day. I'd say I'm black when I wake up and I'm black when I go to bed. I'm not a minority. And people outside of our community create programs called diversity and inclusion and minority set-aside programs. That is not created for us. The only people that win in the minority game is white women. Right now, if you look at the spin from the federal government, if you look at the spin from corporate America, the black spin has gone through the floor. The white women's spin has gone through the roof. We've got to make sure that we're intentional about the programs that we create and who we consider ourselves to be, because minority is always going to be the smallest of the small groups. And that is not who we are, especially not here in Maryland, especially not in 2021. And so our third one is really about contracting. Our fourth one is entrepreneurial training. And I'm so happy that Donnie does these types of conversations on a regular basis. You heard me say we lost 41% of our businesses last year. The majority of them said the reason why they went out of business is because of lack of information. They just did not know where to go to get the help and the resources that they needed to get through, because there was funding made available, there was support made available, but as a community, we found that our businesses did not reach out to organizations like Donnie's, like mine, like many of you, to say, where can I go to get help? And so the U.S. Black Chamber, even in this month of May, we will do 13 webinars free of choice, free of cost, for all of our businesses to make sure that they have the resources and the acumen that they need. Because I don't believe this whole story that people talk about, the reason why black businesses suffered last year was because of financial literacy. That's, excuse my French, bullshit. I was the chamber president in Phoenix, Arizona, and all the businesses had the same challenges. It wasn't a black challenge or a white challenge or a Hispanic challenge. It was small business challenges, and it had nothing to do with our skill set. As a community, black business owners have more degreed owners with higher education levels than any other ethnic community in the country, including our brothers and sisters from the Asian community. And then our last one is really about chamber development. And as I stated, we started off with 6 chambers. Today I have over 149, and I'm really excited about the future. We've done some amazing things here in Washington, D.C. over the last 12 years, but the future is really great. We're looking at doing things across the globe. I know Donnie and I talk a lot about doing business in Africa, so you'll see a lot more on that in reference to the future of the U.S. Black Chamber. But I'm just appreciative that Donnie gave me these 10 so minutes to be able to share a little bit of information with you guys. So a couple things I want you to do. Make sure you onboard your business at buyblack.us. Follow us at usblackchambers.org. If you know of restaurant owners, bar owners, nightclub owners, food trucks and caterers, make sure they get involved in this, man, because that money is going to go quick. And we would hate to see our businesses. Although as a black community, we only are roughly 13-14% of the population. Of the 660,000 restaurants across the country, we own and operate nearly 10% of those. We feed America's hungry. We employ America's chefs and cooks. That's why they call it soul food, because we feed your spirit, we feed the soul, and we're going to continue to do that through this restaurant program.
Hey, Donnie.
Ron, one question. What is the name of that fund for restaurants?
The Restaurant Revitalization Fund. It's called RRF, but you can go to U.S. Black Chamber. We have downloaded and we replayed the whole seminar. It's an hour. You can see it on my Facebook page. You can see it on the U.S. Black Chamber. And let me just say, man, I think it is one of the more progressive programs. Now, this is just friends. The Republicans are mad as hell because there's a lot of money flowing, and it is. Doesn't matter. There's a lot of money. We got to take advantage of it. This money is not coming back, you guys. And once it's gone, it's gone. There's $28 billion, and we get the first bite at the apple. The first 21 days are set aside for minority, disabled, veterans, women. And we own a lot of restaurants, and we know people that own restaurants. We know people that making cupcakes and selling them at church on Sunday. All of those types of firms get a shot. The majority of people didn't apply for payroll protection plan because they just didn't know enough and didn't understand it. Go to my website, go to our website, and it steps you through. And even to the point where we're having 2-hour shifts every day next week to answer questions where you can call and get someone one-on-one to walk you through the application process. So I would just really take advantage of it and let people know that there's funds out here. There are going to be other opportunities that are going to be coming down the pike. But I will say when the payroll protection plan came out, they never talked to organizations like ours and yours, because if they had, we would have told them this ain't gonna work. Of the 2.6 million Black-owned firms that are operated in the country, 2.5 million don't have any employees. We only have about 114,000 Black firms that have one employee, let alone employees. And so we would have told them, let's make this more flexible and more intentional for the business owners that need it the most.
Hey, Donnie, could I weigh in on Brother Ron's comments?
Please introduce yourself.
Well, good morning, everyone. My name is Mark Spencer. I'm an attorney of over 30 years. I've worked in the civil rights arena. I've been a legal advisor to the U.S. Commission on Civil Rights. In my past life, I've worked on cases involving affirmative action, most notably Washington Suburban Sanitary Commission, which was in the tranche of contested MWBE programs that were being knocked down or requalified in the city of Richmond versus J.A. Croson case. I'll say, I mean, everything that Ron said, I see Tamara Brown is on the call. She knows I said all those things before, and he's so right and he's so on point. But I want to stress something that he didn't talk about, and that is everything that he said is undergirded and is covered by the umbrella of political advocacy and power. And for example, he will know, like here in Maryland, you know, in recent years, we've legitimized cannabis growing and now sports gambling. And yet the minority business community has been told, well, that's not businesses for you. Now, I can tell you personally, having been a prosecutor, that I know Black and brown folks know a lot about growing cannabis and selling it. So the idea that they wouldn't be qualified to farm it and to sell it on a retail basis is ridiculous. It's the same thing with sports gambling. But I would say that where Ron didn't cover it, although I'm sure he knows it, is that in my experience, you know, for example, in the Maryland General Assembly and even in the federal government, I mean, a huge amount of money, time and effort is spent simply on lobbying. Business and business interests lobby consistently every day, the political establishment, to get their issue about entrepreneurial economic opportunity in front of people who can make a difference. And it's the same thing that we saw with cannabis, growing and distribution in Maryland, sports book, everything. And I find that, so in my experience, listening, for example, to hearings in the federal government, where you have conservative legislators actually arguing against, you know, what we call affirmative action. Yet, you know, in every hearing, they proclaim themselves to be capitalist, pro-business, pro-expansion, pro-growth. What could be more of those things than entrepreneurial activity that creates jobs in minority communities, that builds wealth in minority communities. And so, you know, the history of the litigation and the rhetoric surrounding affirmative action is simply wrong because, as we've seen, and Ron just said it, it's business. You know, it's just black, brown folks, women trying to get in business and to create opportunities where there aren't opportunities. And so those churches that he talked about, those community businesses, those are businesses that historically have been targeted for development and growth by the white business sector, or certainly not corporate America. That's a huge economic opportunity. So one of the things that I've always said to politicians is that this should be a natural argument for you. I mean, you're not taking away business. Affirmative action doesn't take away business. It creates and grows opportunity. That's what this thing is supposed to be about. And so I think, you know, in the 5 pillars that Ron talked about, advocacy, you know, being that one. And, you know, I think there's been a reluctance that I've experienced and observed in the minority business community. You get a lot of pushback because people, I guess, naturally feel that they can't champion the cause of Black entrepreneurship, minority entrepreneurship. And I think that's exactly wrong. I think it's a natural argument to be made. I think that when you talk about, you know, this program of revitalization for restaurant, that should be something that should be natural and on demand for every politician who claims to be pro-growth and you know, pro-job creation, particularly now. So this is where I think, you know, this idea of coalition building, advocacy learning, but, you know, in my opinion, a significant deficiency is the lack of what has been the lack of will and the lack of push in these state legislatures and local legislatures to make the case for affirmative action as a pro-growth, pro-job creation, pro-capitalist phenomena that they must and should be supporting.
I think, Mark.
Ron, did you want to respond?
Yeah, I was going to say, I think usually when you hear the word Black, from a political perspective, you think automatically Democrat. And when you hear the word business, you automatically think the word politically Republican. I think the U.S. Black Chamber are Black business owners, first, foremost, and last. We don't vote for a party, we vote for policy. And so you will see that many of us are independent and vote, you know, what our conscience in reference to what makes sense for our concerns. In reference to the cannabis industry, some of the challenges, and I was very involved in policies that have just been acted upon in Arizona. It was legalized in the last election. And now I'm involved in a group, and there are 26 licenses up for adoption. And they're saying, we want Black people to be involved. Challenge, gotta have $500,000 to even come to conversation, even to come to the party. And that's not even saying that you're gonna get a license, you're just in the lottery
Get the chance to
get a license. Yeah. So what we've done is said we're going to come up with 100 names of individuals that we think will pass the test. Don't worry about the money. We got you. And we're going to try to go after as many of those licenses, because at first we understood the biggest challenge was going to be the money. So we created the money to be able to set aside to be able to go after the licenses. And the second one was the individuals. Now, Mark, it's you can appreciate this, because I was a little shocked when they were saying, well, what kind of individuals are you looking for? Ex-offenders, drug dealers, drug users, I was like, oh my God, why would I put a cat that's a drug user into, a business? And they said, because they understand the industry. And I was like, well, that's definitely Black folk. And so I believe that there are going to, let me say this. I believe in obstacles. I don't want everybody to win. I don't want it to be easy. I want it to be difficult, because when I get there, I don't want nobody asking me, how did I get there? The 8A program, you heard me talk about that. It is one of the most difficult programs to get, and it should be, because overnight, you're making millionaires. And many of our business owners get opportunities that they're not ready for. We advocate and go to corporate America and say, hey man, give us a shot. And many times I'm having to put 2 and 2 together to make 6. And when I get the cat in the room, they fumble and make it bad for the next guy to come after him. So let's make it difficult on the front end so that when they get the opportunity, they succeed and they make it easier for the next guy to succeed. This cannabis industry is relatively new from a business perspective. The challenge is we got to make sure that we get the right guys in on the front end that win, that do it efficiently, effectively, so that they can make. Now, I don't want anybody to believe that any other community is doing any better than us, any different than us, because they're making the same kind of mistakes. I'm just going to make sure that I hold my people accountable, and that when we get there, we win it. And I'm about winning as much as anything else, because that makes the game that much better to play. I see you trying to get in, Doug, but you're on mute.
Yeah, unmute yourself.
Okay.
Hey, Ron, how are you? I'm from Oakland, California, too, and still reside here.
Skyline, East Oakland. Yes, sir.
A couple things. Lynn, tell Latanya I apologize. We'll catch you on the next one, because I know you guys are on a limited schedule. But I wanted to address 2 things, Ron. And the first of it is, when you talk about that 8A program, you are right. We get brothers and sisters to the table, and they fumble the ball. They drop the ball. That's why it is important to make it difficult. I, like Lynn, my high school buddy from Castlemont High School, Oakland, California, and we had an opportunity.
Skyline.
We had an opportunity. Both of us.
Ooh.
We both had the opportunity to work on large contracts. I started with a 50,000, and it turned over 7 digits within 4 or 5 years. And growth, not being prepared for growth, will sink your ship. So I was prepared, made it, and once again, my good friend right above you, which is John Scott, who's my attorney too, civil rights attorney. But we do have to make it tough for those people who want to get in the big leagues and are prepared, and will make it harder for the next group of entrepreneurs. We have to train them. And I always say, put them in minor league before you put them in the major leagues. And then the second part of that is, Senator Tim Scott proved that there is one Black Republican. So wait a minute. When I saw him speaking after Biden, I am lost for words. But yeah, he has demonstrated there's one Black Republican out there. So, anyway.
Well, hey,
excuse me, and thank you for that interesting information. I'm sure all of us are going to pass it on to people who we all know who are in restaurants and are definitely struggling right now. So thank you for sharing that.
well,
So Doug,
can I say something following up on Doug and Ron? So like here locally, my father was a longtime educator in the vocational technical field. He was a longtime teacher at Phelps Vocational Technical High School here in Washington, D.C. and in fact earned his doctorate in that same field. But one of the things, you know, and talking about going back to Ron's 5 points, that even with entrepreneurship, that is woefully lacking, is there is a bias, and I don't know about nationally, but certainly I've experienced it in this area and in my own home county, Prince George's, against the idea of technical training, vocational training, and development. And, you know, I don't know what it is, maybe it's elitist, but in that idea of creating a farm system, you know, before you graduate to the major leagues. And I think that begins in middle school and high school, teaching entrepreneurship, creating avenues towards technical training, vocational training, and encouraging entrepreneurship, you know, things like learning how to balance a checkbook, you know, what it means to do basic accounting. These are things that, believe it or not, are frowned upon by a lot of people in the African American community, as if every Black and brown child is going to go to somebody's 4-year college and, you know, study whatever. And there are a lot of, I meet a lot of young people who have the entrepreneurial spirit, but who haven't been in a farm system to be able to graduate ultimately to the major league, because they don't know how to get there and they don't have the basics. So I'd like to hear you guys on that, but definitely financial literacy, entrepreneurship, encouragement and training, and you know, things like doing internships. I know both my kids have benefited greatly from that, learning how to do, not necessarily being paid, but being in a place where you learn a trade, a skill, but you also see how business builds and business practice works.
So I'm gonna give a little story, and then I'm gonna drop. So a couple things. My last job, I worked at Coca-Cola fountain sales. I was 27 years old, and I remember coming there, and I was a manager, and I would get to work every morning at 7, and I wouldn't leave until 7 in the evening. So I was putting in 4 hours extra each day. And there, I was 27, and there was a white guy who was 56, and he was my peer. He got to work every day at 9, and he left every day at 5. He knew his customers, he knew the industry. He was extremely successful. And I would go to him a lot and ask him questions. He'd give me good answers. And about 3 months into my career, he and I supervisor called me in his office and said, "Ron, I want you to pack your bags." I thought, "Oh shit, I'm going to get fired." And he said, "No." I said, "Well, what's up?" And he says, "I want you to go and move into Joe's office." Joe was the 56-year-old white guy. And I said, "Well, where is Joe going?" And he said, "Well, Joe's going to be reporting to you." That day, I said, I got to bounce. I got to create an exit strategy, because I didn't want to work another 30 years only to be reporting to someone half my age because they were willing to work 4 more hours than me. And it wasn't like I was just trying to be the goody two-shoes. I was really trying to learn what I didn't know. And my supervisor saw it as commitment, someone that was young, someone that was willing to grow. I saw it as, hey man, if I stay here, I'm going to end up being like Joe. Now in Coca-Cola, our largest customer was McDonald's, right? And at the time, McDonald's had a program where you could go work to become an owner.
Yeah.
You would work there, you know, and I would go to work at McDonald's from 8 to midnight every day. Change my uniform, put on my McDonald's uniform, dropping fries, cleaning grills, mopping toilets. Can I take your order, sir? And it taught me how to be a manager of minimum wage people. And what I realized was the same French fry that you make in San Antonio, you make in Seattle, you make in Singapore. It was a system. It didn't have nothing to do with how much salt you dropped on the fry. And so I said, well, when I go into business for myself, I'm going to create systems so that I can grow my business. So I moved back to Oakland. Doug, you can appreciate this. One of my clients was Jeffrey's Inner Circle. Remember the nightclub, Jeffrey's Club? And I was cleaning the nightclub. I had every kind of contract you could think of, Donnie. I was never too proud to do anything. And I remember being in the club and I'd be like, yo, and the people were like, man, you in the club every night, dude? Like, what's up? And I was like, yes, I had the contract to clean it, pick that glass up on your way out so I can get out of here earlier. And that guy said, hey, Ron, are you getting any work at the Oakland Federal Building? You remember this, the Oakland Federal Building was the largest thing that was coming to Oakland. And I was like, there ain't no way, man. I'm too small. I had like maybe 10 people working for me at the time. And the Oakland Federal Building, square footage was 1 million square foot building. It had 2 towers. Each one was about 500,000 square feet with about 21 floors on each side. I said, man, it takes 40, 50 people to clean that building. I don't have 40, 50. He said, I didn't ask you that. He said, I asked you, are you getting any of the work there? And I said, no. And he said, here's a business card. It was a company called Galbraith Companies out of Ohio. He said, I want you to call these people up. And there's some brothers that are having some meetings. And it's a consortium of brothers, older brothers, that are all going in as a consortium to go after some of the contracts. I get in the room and there's all these older, well-established Black-owned, and I'm just, young cat excited to be in the room and get in there. And it was like, okay, well, you're going to get the engineering, you're going to get the landscaping, you're going to get the window washing, you're going to get the carpet cleaning. All right. And there were 2 guys in there getting the janitorial. Now, mind you, there were 30 companies bidding on the janitorial. And I'm going to end after this story, Don. My company had 5 employees, and they said, I submitted my proposal, and they said, hey, man, we need to see your staff. So I had like 5, nice little uniforms, but I put that uniform shirt on every friend that I had, took a photo. I was like, man, put this shirt on because I got to show them that I got people that work for me. So I got like 40 friends. I put them in a uniform, put together a proposal, and went from 30 companies bidding on it down to 20. And I made the first 20. And the people in Oakland was like, oh, that's nice, young man. That's great. And then it went from 20 to 10. And then I went to the Oakland we had a Black bank there. We had a CDFI in Oakland. And I went to them and I talked to them about giving me some funding. And they said, okay, we had Barbara Lee there. Barbara Lee was then the senator. Barbara Lee said, I'll write you a letter of support. At the time, it was my frat brother, and I can't think of his name. He only had the one eye. He was the mayor. And I went to him, and Elihu Harris. I went and cleaned his carpets for him and said, hey, Mr. Mayor, would you write me a letter? And he said, sure, young man, I'll write you a letter. And it went from 20 companies down to 6. And I had a girlfriend at the time, and she was like, oh, Lord, we just made it. She's out looking, shopping for, new wedding rings. I was like, baby, we ain't even in the mix yet. We just made it down to the last list. And I remember the Oakland Tribune wrote a story about us. And we made it to the final 3. And I was just like, wow. Now, mind you, it was 3 of us. I was the young, small guy versus 2 older, established companies. They ended up giving the 2 companies, one company got the day porter service, so they were cleaning up during the daytime. The other company got the night porter service, so they were cleaning up at nighttime. Then, Doug, there was another facility in East Oakland, the roughest part of town. Nobody wanted to go there. It was a small building, and I got that contract. Then, mind you, their contracts were like $3-4 million. Mine might have been like $3,000-4,000. But I cleaned my facility like it was the $3 million contract. And ended up happening, the day porter started pointing fingers at the night porters, saying the reason why I wasn't done was because they didn't do it. The night porters were pointing their fingers at the day porters. And a year went by, and they both got fired. And guess who ended up getting the contract? We did. I tell people all the time, young people particularly, I don't want you to go into business for yourself. I don't want you to mess up your mama and daddy's credit. I don't want you to mess up your name, nor do I want you to mess up your future. Mark, you said something really good, and that is internships. I did several interns while I was in college. I tell young people, there ain't gonna be that many new mousetraps.
Yep.
Take those skills that you have, that you come in with, and go find somebody that's doing something kind of similar to what you think you might want to do. Like, I had no idea I wanted to be in janitorial. There was a young lady who is now the president of Ebony magazine, Michelle G. She went to Howard University. She comes home and she says, I think I want to be going to janitorial business. I said, no, you don't. You're too attractive. You don't want to do this. It's too hard work. She says, yes, I do. I said, I tell you what, you come work for me for 4 weeks. And at the end of the 4 weeks, you still decide you want to go into business for yourself, I got you. But if not, I want you to come work for me. About 3 weeks in, she said, hey, I'm good. I'll work for you. What young people need to do is find someone that they can go intern with. And the reason I say that is because if you look at Black Enterprise and you look at the top 100 list, every year companies get there and then they fall off and we never hear from them again. And we never hear from them because they don't have a succession plan. They don't have a son or a daughter or a Tamara Brown to be able to say, let me pass this off to you. My father didn't know what he was getting ready to do with the janitorial service when he got ready to retire. I wouldn't. My parents did like your parents. They sent us off to college so we could get these great jobs. I was making $150,000 a year at Coca-Cola. My father's company wasn't doing but $150,000 a year in annualized revenue. All my friends thought I was crazy. I was getting manicures at the office. People coming by to pick up my dry cleaner to go back home in the same bunk bed that I had when I was in the 3rd grade. People thought I had lost my mind, but I had a vision. If I could just double the company every year, I could be rich. To go from $150,000 to $300,000 wasn't that tough. I could, put together a little proposal. To go from $300,000 to $750,000, we really went to $1 million. Wasn't that tough. I wore a suit and tie. I was competing against my father who wore overalls and yes sir, no sir, and Julio. I could speak the King's English. I could go talk to a customer about what their needs are, and everything being equal, they'd much rather give it to me. I went from $1 million 1 year to $3 million because I got some city contracts. I went from $3 million to $7 million because I had all the Kaiser Permanentes in the state of California. I had all the AT&T facilities in the state of California, only because everybody thought janitorial was something that nobody wanted to do. And I was like, it is what I want to do. My father had been in janitorial. My father had 5 employees. My mother, my father, my 2 sisters, and me. That was his staff. I took that same idea and grew it from 5 employees to 1,500, and we were the largest Black janitorial service in the country. I just think many times young people are trying to do the sexy, trying to do the, the sleek and the tech, and nothing wrong with that. But we've got to make sure that we're talking about opportunities and where can I get in, make an impact, and win and get paid.
Yes.
I came to Washington, D.C. in 2009. We only had 6 chambers. Nobody believed in what I was talking about doing. Nobody knew me. I was from Phoenix, Arizona. Wasn't no brothers out there. Wasn't no whole lot of activity going. But when I came to Phoenix, we did not acknowledge Dr. King Holiday. Remember this. Arizona was the last state to recognize Dr. King Holiday. But we also did not have a Cardinal stadium. We had a professional football team, no football stadium. We were playing at the Arizona State University outdoors. You got a professional football team playing outdoors in Arizona, and it's 120 degrees. Other teams didn't want to come there. Now, I had a janitorial company. I'm pretty big now in Phoenix, Arizona. I get to know our governor, Janet Napolitano. She was the first governor to come out to endorse then Senator Barack Obama. She says, hey, Ron, there's this cat coming up here. He loves to play golf. Would you like to, take him out? He's talking about doing something nationally in politics. I was like, okay. I meet the cat, and this is early on. He's smoking cigarettes, he's stuttering, and he hitting the golf ball everywhere. And I'm like, dude, what are you trying to do? And he's like, I want him for president. And I was like, come on, man, president of what? He said, yeah. I said, that ain't gonna work, man. Your middle name is, now mind you, we just had 9/11. America wasn't ready for somebody named Barack Hussein Obama. But I said, hey, man, if you run, we got you back here in Arizona. Governor Janet Powell said, Ron, go help him. I had the janitorial contract conversations early on with the NFL because we had just enough Black folk that were involved to go to the NFL and say, you know what? They were trying to bring the Super Bowl to Phoenix. Kathy Adams. They were trying to bring the Super Bowl to Phoenix, and we said, no, you can't do it. You cannot bring the Super Bowl to Phoenix unless you acknowledge Dr. King Holiday. Went to the NFL players said, that's a good play. NFL players say, okay, cool, we want to come to Phoenix. You guys got a new stadium? They say, great, we'll acknowledge Dr. King Holiday. That was how I got to be, you know, the advocate that I am, the Black leader, the voice of Black business, is because we were able to negotiate a deal that was good for the community, good for Black people, and good for the NFL. I ended up getting the janitorial contract to clean the Cardinal Stadium. John McCain's wife had the Budweiser distributorship at the Cardinal Stadium. John McCain and I were very good friends. When I moved to DC, although he was a Republican, he opened up a lot of doors. So I say all the time, it ain't about Republican or Democrat. It is about issues that are important to Black people. And we got to keep that in mind. Kathy Adams was our Chamber of the Year. Kathy, we had Michelle on yesterday when we did the revitalization program. She did an extremely good job.
All right.
Yeah, hi, Kathy. I just wanted to butt in there because, Ron, our paths must have crossed somehow. You being from Oakland, I got a pretty large family, and I know a lot of Busbys. I even went to school with them. But I always say this. I don't know how old you are, but most
62.
Okay, so we right in the same range. And I tell everyone, when you say something, I got a story for it. And so Ron has a story for everything. And it sounds like everything you guys have said is what we're doing too. You almost made my presentation around construction. So Construction Resource Center is the business behind construction, not brick and mortar, but the business side. And we see most people fail because of the business side of construction. So, for example, when you get your partnership agreement, you're trying to do a partnership, where do you get it from? Typically, people start off and they want, hey, I'm doing it with my family. Our company was built on our family. And so we don't have the proper paperwork in place because it's family, and that creates confusion. You guys talked about a lot of things, succession plan, systems and processes. That's what the Construction Resource Center does for the business side of construction. But whenever I get an opportunity to speak, that's what I want to talk about. But the other thing, Ron, Castlemount, your family, I think if you're related to all those Busbys that we know, Tyrone Busby and his family lived right around the corner from them. You went to Skyline. My mother has a twin sister, and my sisters, they went to Skyline. The Griffins, most people know the Griffins are the Turners. So anyway, once you guys give me an opportunity to speak, I want to talk about our history.
Well, you might as well keep the floor there, Lantern.
Okay, all right. And so John,
Yes,
when John said something, he also said, you're preaching to the choir. So most of us on here are in business, and in business. And so Turner Group Construction, it's a group. So my brothers and my cousins all been in construction in the brick and mortar field forever. And so when I got out of school, I went to Southern California. I worked for Disney. Ron, you said you worked for IBM. I worked for IBM. I worked for subsidiaries of IBM. I managed Europe, I managed Southeast Asia, I managed the Americas. And so I thought with my business acumen that I could come and take over my brothers, cousins, their business and build this group because of my business background to help us lead the industry. And arguably, we were the largest Black, possibly even the largest minority company in the Bay Area. And so that's where the Construction Resource Center was built out of, because when we started, we didn't have any help. Where do you get the forms that you need in the office in the field? Who tells you who to hire? Who tells you when you grow in your joint venture, you want to put a joint venture together? Where do you get that agreement from? You pay thousands of dollars for all of that data, but you don't even know what to put in it. So the Construction Resource Center put books together, put e-learning modules together in English and Spanish, explaining that pathway to success. So the JV agreement, let's say that for instance, we didn't know what to put in it because you have to understand how it works. Typically, these larger companies get you around the management piece. So you think you're getting 50, 60%, and you're really getting 30% because they have all this management fees and all these other things inside their agreement. When you're doing construction, you have a site that's built up off of these general service dollars. Where does all that equipment go when the project's over? Typically, the larger company takes it, but it also belongs to the JV partner. But we typically don't know that. A lot of the larger companies say the reason they need to get most of the business when they partner with you is because they are doing the bonding. Because typically we can't bond, we don't have cash flow. But these three words, joint and several, if that's in your contract, then you are just as responsible for that bond as they are. So take it out. So in our books, we put together the best practices for a potential construction company and the construction companies that are in business, mainly the small, medium-sized companies, that they have this roadmap to success. The larger companies can use it as well if they're trying to mentor construction companies, and they can use the resource center to do that. What we also need is a location. So we have a building. We're one of the only companies in the Bay Area, and I'm saying minority and Black company, that actually has a building where we have office space, we have conference rooms, we have warehouse space, we have a parking lot where the contractors can take advantage of it. And so what we've been doing is teaching a 10-week program. It's called project management, but it's really project/business management. And once you get the structure actually works for any business, but we have the slant on it for construction because that's what we know. Any questions?
Lynn?
Yes.
I can honestly say it is worth its weight and value. I attended the 10-week course. I have my certificate. It's over here somewhere. And I can tell you, Lynn, I was thoroughly impressed with the information that I received. And you and I have worked on a couple of projects together. As we were talking, Ron Busby, and you were saying that some people aren't ready for the big leagues. When you go through this program, it will identify your weaknesses and help you develop those weaknesses into strength. Because at the end of the day, if you don't have what you need, you're gonna not be able to work with gentlemen like Kamal Hubbard. How you doing? He's worked with the Office of Civil Rights for San Mateo County Transportation Authority. Kathy Adams, my president of the Oakland East Bay, Oakland African American Chamber of Commerce, and the president for the #1 chamber in the U.S., Kathy. And if you do these things correctly, you won't have to hire my friend John Scott, who defended and won my last situation where I was being taken advantage of. So it's amazing, Lynn. Your program is outstanding program.
Hey,
So,
Lynn and Doug, can I ask a question?
sure.
And make a point, and that is
No. Mark, I need you to hold tight for a second.
okay.
We have not shown much chivalry here, gentlemen, and we must give these ladies a chance to introduce themselves. Let's go to Tamara and then to Kathy. Come on, Tamara, say hello.
Hi, Tamara.
Well, good morning, everyone. It's Tamara
Good
Brown.
morning.
Good morning. Y'all, a lot of you may know me if you're in the Maryland, the Baltimore area. I feel like I am the advocate for our minority businesses in Baltimore City. So it's great to be on here. I've learned a lot just listening. I'm enjoying just listening.
Hi, Tamara. Good to see you again.
You owe me an email, Doug.
Come on, Kathy.
Hey.
Well, hey, everybody. I think we all know me. I just want to thank Donnie for hosting this. Lynn and Doug and that are members of the chamber. We have really been working hard in the Bay Area. In November, we went to the city and demanded that they release a disparity study. And they did. They hurriedly released it that day. And since January, we've been working very hard with the city administrator to make sure, like the on-call contracts and most of the contracts that are in the city, that Black folks get the business. So we're holding them accountable. I would be remiss if I did not say, and I think you all know her, just found out, Elaine Brown, former chairwoman of the Black Panther Party, has a $70 million contract that she is going to be developing 79 apartment buildings. So I think the critical piece, as I kind of wrap up here, is that it's getting to the point where we've got to do what we need to do to create these opportunities. I tell people all the time, I understand how our businesses have been marginalized. I understand systemic racism, but we're going to do our part with the city. I met with the mayor and I said, if we cannot report in the next month how many Black businesses have gotten contracts, then I said to myself, other cities have been sued for discrimination, so I know they don't want to do that. So it's not a threat, but we're going to be up in there fighting to make sure something happens. So glad to be here.
Give me a call, Kathy. I might have something that you can, I might have something to email for you. So,
okay,
yeah,
great.
we got to exchange some information.
Donnie, I just wanted to say thank you for having me on this morning, man. I got to drop off, but I do want to give everybody just a warm welcome. And just want to say thank you to Donnie for doing this. Donnie was one of the first guys I met when I came to DC. And for those of you that are in the middle, Baltimore is so much like Oakland. There's so many similarities there. A lot of challenges, but most importantly, a lot of opportunities. And when you get good leadership, it always rises to the top. So Donnie, continued success, man. Thank you for having me on this morning. You got my folk on the phone, so I know you in good hands. And Kathy gonna make sure that there's going to be some accountability and some action. So God bless all you guys. It's May. This is Small Business Month. Let's keep doing what we're doing. I know at the end of the month, it's the 100th year anniversary. I know Donnie's gonna talk a lot about it, about Tulsa. And so you'll see the U.S. Black Chamber also doing a lot there. If you haven't gotten vaccinated, make sure you do that as well. And if you know folk that are in the restaurant business, make sure that they're taking advantage of that as well. Kathy and Tamara, there's a navigator programs coming out from the SBA, $100 million. And these are for nonprofit organizations that touch small business owners to get these programs out. So make sure you're looking out for that. Kathy, you'll be hearing a lot more about that from the U.S. Black Chamber. We're going to make sure that Oakland gets some of that money.
Well, you
Ron, before you sign off, is it okay? Get your information from Kathy because I want to talk about our program on the national level.
Yeah. We'll do. Thanks again, guys.
All right.
Thanks, Donnie, for having me, man. God bless. Continued success.
Good deal. One more thing. John Scott, please come in and say hello. I don't want you to feel left out.
You're on mute.
All right. I don't feel left out. I'm enjoying this. This is like way overdue, is all I can say. But, you know, I'm glad that this is happening in my lifetime.
There you go. All right.
And I was, you know, I'm a child of the 60s. And when I was born in 1948. And during the 60s, you know, I just hung out with a lot of black people. And, you know, I was going to the Apollo in New York when I was the only white person there. And those were some good times. And, you know, I was playing basketball in junior high school. High school, I was the only white kid starting. So I understood what it meant to be part of a team with some brothers. And I just grew up that way. And, but, you know, and then to see things kind of go backwards for so many years, it's been just disappointing and frustrating. But to just be here today, the way the wind is blowing finally, and to see things like this happening makes me feel good. Too little, too late, but still, we're going into the right direction.
Well, John,
Is it true that Doug was on in his mama's basement for 3 years and you helped him get through the storm until he successfully sued somebody out there in California to get his piece of the rock?
Yeah, it was Clark Construction, and we had to shame them into doing the right thing. It wasn't because they wanted to. It was because, let's just say, I think the ultimate leverage was Clark was getting some bad publicity, and we were going to just kind of pile on if we got the chance, and they blinked before we went to trial. But, you know, and as a civil rights attorney for over 40 years, one thing I learned as a very young attorney, and I was the NAA, I was suing the Richmond Police Department back in the late 70s, early 80s. I was the guy who took the case to trial against the Cowboys in 1983. In Richmond, got a $3 million verdict, 150 witnesses, three-month trial. And which was, and what I learned from it, because the NAACP kind of heard about me, what I was doing in Richmond, and wanted to join. And I said, well, you're welcome, of course. But what I learned from the NAACP was, and a guy named Oliver Jones, they knew how to use the media. And they had friends at the Oakland Tribune. They had a friend at the San Francisco Chronicle. And so, and, you know, they were able to organize marches and get public attention. And that is so, as everybody here knows, I mean, that just made a difference. And so being able to have people in the media, even back then, you know, to help expose things when you're up against the government, because when you're suing the government, it's not their money. They don't give a shit about the money. Okay. They just care about getting reelected and taking care of their friends. And so if you want to get the attention of people in the government, it's through the media. And so let's just say I've been able to use the media over the years to help me get good results for my clients. Most have been minority, but this is a little interesting war story some of you might find interesting. Some of you may have heard of John Burris. Well, in 1983, when I sued the Richmond Police Department, we went to trial. John Burris was a DA in Alameda County. And he followed the trial very closely. And then I met with him and actually mentored him a little bit. Not that he needed a lot of mentoring, but with that verdict, that's when he decided he was going to stop being a DA and start suing cops. So I'm glad I was helpful in inspiring that. And, up until John Burris came along, I was kind of the only guy in town. And then John Burris took on a lot of it, which was fine with me because there's plenty of work to go around. It wasn't like, with so many people calling up John Burris, my business slowed down. It didn't. So it was just nice to see other people out there, going in that direction. But I will say that, most of my career has been devoted to representing minorities, but I represent women, white women. I mean, I've represented all kinds of people, even some white people who had their civil rights violated. But mostly what I've done over the last 40 plus years is represent people who've been seriously injured or families people who've been killed by the police. That's just kind of my thing. And that's been my thing since 1978, 79. Because for me, the ultimate abuse of government power, aside from sending an innocent man to jail, and there's a lot of that going on, it's hard to undo as a civil rights attorney. When he's been convicted, going to prison, it's kind of hard to bring a civil rights lawsuit. But although I have gotten a couple of people out of prison, through litigation, working with people like in the Innocence Project. But for me, seeing people, Black people, arrested and beaten up for driving while Black, shopping while Black, talking, walking while Black, that just, for me, that was the ultimate violation. And so I've been devoting myself to that kind of litigation, and but under a larger umbrella of discrimination. So I've represented a lot of people in employment discrimination cases. I've done some of that. Done some prison cases. I've done patient right cases, and the spectrum. If there's a civil rights issue that I can take to federal court and go to trial, I've tried over 150 cases to verdict, most of them civil rights cases. So I'm just,
John, let me just step in for a second. We want to bring up Kamal. Doug, you want to set it up for Kamal?
Kamal and John are almost in the same industry. John's a civil rights attorney in the Alameda County area, and Kamal is, I'll let you introduce yourself, but yeah, I'd like to start. You were Office of Civil Rights from the San Mateo County Transportation Authority, and he's done an outstanding job as it relates to matchmaking with these multi-million and billion-dollar companies to make sure Black women and men-owned business have an opportunity on these hundreds of millions, if not billions of dollars. So I'll let you start. And he is also the author of a new book. Go ahead, introduce yourself, Kamal.
Thanks, Doug. Thanks, Donnie, for having me on the show. And thank you again, Doug, for inviting me. As mentioned, I'm the DB administrator for the San Mateo County Transit District, which covers bus operations under Samtrans, fixed rail operations under Caltrain, and road operations under the San Mateo County Transit Authority. I started this work a few years back, I believe in 2015, when I joined the City and County of San Francisco at the Airport Division's Office of Small Business Affairs. I got involved in the Disadvantaged Business Enterprise, regulations and program, and became an analyst there, and took some time off to go into the private sector and become a blockchain analyst. That was something that I started kind of doing independent research on, but then I came back to the public sector once again with San Mateo County. And it's very hard work working on behalf of women and minorities, and especially championing championing Black businesses in particular. It's still a bit of an early morning for me, but I'm having a great time. I'm very happy to be here with so many esteemed colleagues in the industry, and I'm here to help as many businesses as possible, especially Black businesses, come into some of the projects that we have in the upcoming offering. So feel free to reach out to me in that capacity. Also, as Doug mentioned, I'm the author of a new book called DeFi for the Diaspora. DeFi is short for decentralized finance. So many problems that Black businesses have come in the way of financing. And I wrote this book really with everything going on last year with Ahmaud Arbery, Breonna Taylor, George Floyd. When people were hitting the streets, I decided to write this book and describe how we can use decentralized finance and financial technology to create a more equitable and sustainable economy, global economy. We can start here in the United States, and I'm getting the groundwork, working with the city of Boston and their Black business development group to get people interested in understanding blockchain, cryptocurrencies, and how they can integrate that into their business operations. I'm looking to work with other Black chambers of commerce throughout the country as well to provide them with education and understanding, because one of the things also that we faced is discrimination from banking and financial institutions. And so using decentralized finance, we can move away from those systems to have the equality in finance that we deserve, just in that we haven't gotten over the years. I do also realize in writing this book that we are hitting the 100-year anniversary of Tulsa. And so this book was a tribute to not just all of those people and all those people who lost their businesses. I also mentioned the Freedmen's Bank that was established after slavery and what the outcome was with that. I touch on things like redlining, blockbusting, and how these regulations and laws were essentially legalized discrimination that have hurt us financially over the years in the United States. I also talk about other issues globally that have kept people underbanked and unbanked. And once again, this is an opportunity to bring knowledge and education to people to say, hey, here's a way to use this financial technology to have greater equality and access in financial matters.
Wonderful. Thanks. Oh, go ahead, Doug.
No, I just want to thank John Scott and Kamal Hubbard. Both are under their title, Office of the Civil Rights and the Civil Rights Attorney. Me, myself, I've sued more than one big corporation, multi-billion-dollar corporation. And if it wasn't for Kamal Hubbard advocating for Black and brown brothers and sisters, there would not be opportunity. Second, with John, I had a Black attorney, and I had to fire him and get John, who's white. But I don't know if John ever knew this. One of the reasons I was so gung-ho with John is because I saw this movie one time where it says A Time to Kill. And when he was in the, Samuel L. Jackson was in jail, he looked at his white attorney and said, I didn't hire you because I like you. I didn't hire you because you're my friend. I hired because you white. You think like the white man. So I need somebody to think like the white man to help me win. So, John, you did your job, and I knew, and I would recommend you to anybody. You did a fantastic job. Thank you.
Hey, Donnie, could I weigh in with a comment and a question? And I want to hear what Kathy and Tamara have to say. Listening to what Len and Doug talked about, I mean, what I heard was a very dynamic, really education program, teaching. And that's something, at least in my experience here in the Mid-Atlantic and the Baltimore, Washington area, we have been, in my opinion, very lax about. And I'll say it this way. I don't know what it is, but it's always been my perception that in the African-American community particularly, there's something about not wanting to share information. And so, Lynn talked about with his construction, teaching program. I mean, that's something that's extremely dynamic. I don't know that we have anything in our area like that. But one of the things I'd ask you all to consider is, what Donnie has been trying to do. And that is, our folks, we need a network that is an educational, teaching, sharing, coalition building apparatus. I've talked about this for years, but it's been my observation, there is great reluctance in the Black entrepreneurial community about getting together, sharing information, cross-teaching and learning, that builds things like joint ventures and consortiums. It was interesting to hear Ron talk about that. And I mean, it's just really difficult. And from an attorney's perspective, I mean, that strengthens our ability to argue for opportunities so much better because we're ultimately talking about capacity. The one thing that we always get kicked around with when we're talking about making arguments or suing people, particularly before the federal courts, is to say, well, you lack capacity. You don't have demonstrated capacity. And, coming out of that Croson formulation, it was all about, the whole construct is that, well, minority firms can only be subcontractors and they lack capacity, they lack experience. And so those are natural limitations. And that's why greater opportunity isn't something that, local governments and businesses have to really be prepared for. So I just want to hear your comments and how do we, first of all, is my perception one that you have observed, but our community has to do a better job, in my opinion, of sharing information, learning, teaching, grooming, young people for entrepreneurial opportunity like internships and learning. And then that leads to empowering us to be lobbyists and advocates for greater opportunity.
Well, I can say, Mark, that I strongly agree. But what has happened, particularly since I've been president of the chamber, it is critical that we change the narrative, create a level of trust. And that's just, it's just true that some of our businesses may not be as prepared as others. That's why it's so important for companies like Lynn Turner and then others, with Doug and some of the companies that he's working with, is to create that. But we also have to be honest with our truth as Black people. Some of us are not ready. Some of us are not open. We criticize the PPP, but at the end of the day, no one is going to give us something. It's not enough just to be Black anymore. But when you come together strong and you come together with some money, you got to do that. I don't know. This is a good time to share. When the pandemic took place, in 90 days, I raised $1.1 million to give grants to 230 businesses. Why? Because if I had listened to the TV one more time, systemic racism, that's real. Ain't nothing changed. When we think about what our people did to fight for us, it's time for us to make them proud, to stop scurrying around. I almost said a curse word, scurrying around, and be able to say, it doesn't matter what Lynn is doing. If Lynn has an opportunity, if you got brought to the party, and if more of us are together, then you can be the prime versus a sub. But people still got to eat. And so until we recognize where we are and what we can do, and stop haggling. Somebody offered me a deal and I said, okay, you know what? This is a deal that was brought to me that I wasn't looking for. How am I going to create an opportunity to make sure this person get an opportunity because they looked out for me? So always look at things, like I said, from an opportunity, but we can fuss and argue all day long, but it's time for us to change our own narrative. We're on the forefronts fighting with the city, telling them what they're going to do because the numbers are there. But they've been messing around with that crap for 20 years. And one of these old developers, well, the city ain't going to do this. I said, well, I don't know what you were doing, but I don't waste my time about what I'm doing. So when we passed the disparity study, I wanted to quit because I was tired. And I said, you know what? You can't quit now. So all of the people that are there, you got to hold them accountable. And when you go to the press, which we've been getting a lot of, we got to make it. They're killing our people every single day. And I'm just sitting there saying, as somebody was talking early, I said, I feel like having a t-shirt that said I'm black and leave me the fuck alone. Basically, at the end of the day, let us do what we need to do. And let's just let today be the beginning that we work together with our collective, stop complaining about what we ain't got, collaborate. If it's through the United States, find all the black people that got money. You're dealing with the bank in LA, and let's just do our own stuff. But I don't want to talk so much about what didn't happen. And I already told the mayor, I said, hey, we're doing a press conference after all these meetings because we need to tell the city what you're doing. I say, ain't y'all tired of people criticizing you and breaking you down? Aren't you tired? And at the end of the day, some black people may lose their jobs, but you didn't advocate for us, and that's not my problem. So figure it out. So sorry to be so emotional.
Thanks.
Can I ask you a question, Kathy? When you all were receiving the results of your disparity study, how did you find effective in terms of presenting that to the political decision makers to tell them, look, here's the pathway for you to expand opportunity?
It was real clear. That's why I contacted our mayor and said, we need to get at the table, which we are now. Every single contract that is distributed from the city, I meet with them bi-weekly. And before, it was pretty bad for me. And they called me personally. They said, Kathy, can you just give us just some patience? I said, okay, I'll take it down a notch, but I'm letting you know that I'm watching what you're doing. So they're at the county, and and Doug, like I said, the meetings are happening, and I do see a turn. Councilmember Lauren Taylor, who's in District 6, couldn't do it by himself, but he was brave enough to come with us to stand for us to release it. It sat on the city's desk. So the discrimination is there, marginalizing our business is there. Lynn, you know it. And then it's about their headquarters. I'm not in construction and he can jump in, but you got these white boys coming in, getting a desk and a chair, being able to get the contract because they got the money on paper. Lynn, know y'all got hard time to get bonded. Then we get mad, but we got to get our back room together. And Lynn can comment on that. So at the end of the day, even though I want to criticize the city, a lot of these contracts, if you ain't got the money to fund it, it's just like these SBA contracts. If you ain't got no money, that is a sure way to take our businesses down. I'm not doing nothing and get paid after I spend my money. Give me my money now and I'll show you my paperwork, but I'm not doing your work and bill you to wait till I get paid. And you guys know too, what is that? Prevailing wages. All of our companies go down because you're waiting to get the check to pay your bills. So let's have the real conversation. We can't go out and say that white people ain't doing it. Yes, it's true for discrimination. Some cities sued. But now that we're on the table, Dr. Eleanor Ramsey has been the author of several disparity studies. The reason we showed up to fight for her, because they was trying to say her report was faulty, that is set on the city attorney's office for 10 months, didn't move. The press conference was at 11. They released the study at 11:50. I got a call that morning at 7 a.m. and the council member said, and I don't care, this, I speak my truth. He said, well, Kathy, the mayor is going to release the study. I said, I don't care what she said. This press conference is going forward. How do I have the guarantee when y'all been dealing with this for 20 years to have that level of trust? And at the end of the day, if certain people had had their paperwork in order, they'd have probably beat me to the point. But guess what? 11 o'clock, 11:50. And you showed up because we demanded it. So the long story short, Mark, it's time for us to be in the now. I know what we've been. Fannie Lou Hamer gave her an eye for trying to fight. We got to start thinking about what they did. So what are we going to do to not be the victim? And we understand it. But the only thing that's going to change anything is law and process. And that's what they're doing with the city. I'm on this man thing at speed dial. Lauren, this ain't moving fast enough. What are we doing? The contracts that are $50,000 that y'all can just give, I understand it. You can't keep giving the same person. And we got to get people like with Lynn to be comfortable with the paperwork. I hate filling out stuff. Sometimes I used to say, I'm going to do the work. Why can't they just give me the money? Well, it don't work like that. You got to put the paperwork in. So that's where you guys come in. Start convening your developers, coming back with your contractor to say, look, this deal is coming in. Everybody got to be accountable. And then you put a disclaimer clause. So if Doug falls short, he's out of here. Lynn falls short, you're out of here. Some accountability has got to work. So what you're saying is true. How can we change our narrative? And that's what we're doing. People got to be able to get bonded. It's just like getting a contract. I learned from Carol H. Williams when I was young in business, and I worked with her on a project. And they used to go to what they call the war room. So their operations guy is there. She may get a $5 million contract, but can her business carry the paper? And you have to turn it down. I have a partner right now. Well, I got this $1 million contract. And I said, well, how are you going to do that? Because if you're in logistics and you're doing hotel distribution, who's going to put the credit card up so when the team shows up to get their rooms, they ain't telling you ain't nobody paid for it? So that's our real truth, you guys. So when those contracts come, if you can't afford to carry it, it's going to take your company down. And that's where the collaborative, that's where you utilize your ecosystem to make it work. I ain't got all the answers, but I've been working with Lynn and Doug and all of them for a long time. And it don't take a rocket scientist to deal with this. So we're fighting, you guys, to make sure Black folks get some contracts in Oakland. Deborah Barnes, all of them, Fletcher, Jason is left. We got a new replacement. Ernestine Nettles, we're fighting for her. She's the only one certifying firms. I do certifications every month. So at least, and then you got people say, well, I got certified and I never got no business. I said, look, trust me on this. We're going to show up. And then when we go up to the council, say, look, this is not working. You discriminated against this business. And then we'll call Doug. He can lead the lawsuit. And then we figure out how we're going to divvy it up and make our business. It don't make sense. So that's it. I get worked up and Doug get worked up about that stuff too. And I ain't trying to get no contract from the city. That's why I'm on there cussing their butts out every day. I ain't looking for your $5.25. At the end of the day, I'm here advocating for our members and our people. And I meet with the mayor once a month. So at least we're making an impasse. I don't care what Jake and all them guys did back in the past, because some of us didn't do right, y'all, when we got the money. Let's put that out there. So I'm going to let that piece go, but marinate on that for a minute. So let's not blame everybody, because some of us got money for projects and they just didn't come off the way they supposed to. They're giving money for these development projects that's coming, all of this money coming, and I ain't letting nobody pimp the chamber no more. If you're not a member of the chamber and you got a bunch going, I'm not writing no letter for your company to be able to get your federal funds on our back and you ain't putting nothing in. So don't even come here with that, because we're not doing it. Okay.
Kathy, real quick, if I can intervene and interject.
Yes, intervene, please.
what I also have, we've talked over the last week or two, and this also goes to Tamara Brown. We have got to establish, just like the NAACP has a civil rights fund to fight racism, we have to have a economic civil rights fund, because I was truly blessed, and that's why I wanted John to come on the show to introduce himself. And I'm glad you are here tomorrow, because I know the fight you getting ready to fight. Call me anytime. And Donnie, I was supposed to send her an email, I didn't, but please give her my information. I'm not too IT savvy, but it is critical that we have lawyers in place. And I wanted to mention this to Ron Busby, but he had to get off. We need to have lawyers in place who will fight for injustice in economic growth and development. That is just like what we saw for 9 minutes and 26 seconds. The way that white racist cop had his knee on that man's neck and killed him, that is the same premises that we have in economic. When the white man put his hand on your throat, and I'm not trying to be racist, but if you hold somebody down and stop them from making money, that's just like choking them to death.
Absolutely.
Doug, I gotta
Can I
cut you
just
for a
say?
second.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, go
Well,
ahead.
we promised the floor to Len
I
next.
want you to not stop fighting. Thank you.
Len, come on in. We got
yeah,
Len tomorrow.
Okay, and I agree with everything Kathy said, Doug said, and pretty much everybody on this panel. We kind of know the issues, and we continue to talk. Let's just do it. Let's make it happen. We already know that most companies, construction or not, we don't have the funding. We don't have the capacity. We don't have the staffing. We don't have the relationships we need. When we started the Turner Group, I thought my brothers and my cousins, I thought they had some relationships put together. But it's the typical small business, I'll say, how they put the companies together. They weren't incorporated. They were all self-proprietorships, didn't have any vendor relationships, didn't have any banking relationships. And so for the first year and a half, I just had to build a structure. We didn't have anybody to help us. And then we did the same thing. Everything that we put in our books is what the mistakes we made. Some things we did very well, some things we didn't do very well, but we put in our books. And typically what we do is hire our mother, our little young daughter, little son to be in the office. No, you're losing money. Don't build a job around someone's skill set that doesn't have the skill set you need. You're losing money. We got to understand that. Some things we can not afford to have. We cannot afford to not to have a bookkeeper or a CPA or an estimator. So in construction, estimating is the heart of your business. And most people, I can't afford an estimator. And then when your estimate is off, everything is off. And we don't put enough emphasis on the office, the qualified office people that we need. The personnel there need to be just as qualified as the field. If you're not talking with the office in the field and your paperwork isn't connecting, you're losing money. You can't go from being a $50,000 company to a $200,000 company using the same processes and system. It will not work. It just doesn't work. And we have to understand that. When we get money, people think, oh man, you got a $10 million contract. But typically in construction, you probably make $300,000. So that $10 million is owed out to people, but we spend it like it's our money. And then it's somebody else's issue, but ours. It's your issue. You're not managing your money properly. You're putting your emphasis in the wrong place. We're typically takers and not givers. You got to keep giving to what's given to you. So if you don't continue to build your business and learn, you're going under. So when you look at our books and our e-learning modules and take our class, it's all because we we pretty much made every mistake that you can make. We've had every lawsuit and been sued on every level that you can possibly think of. And we were able to come out of those things, I won't say unscathed, but we have a lot of experience to share. And we need to start sharing the information, just as Mark said, because we can't do all of the work anyway, and we don't want to. So why don't we figure out how to share? If we come together, I mean, just 10% of us, if we just come together and start sharing the information. And so, like I talked about the estimator, if you can't afford an estimator, then find 10 other companies and you guys share the estimator. You figure out 10 different projects that you want to go after. This estimator estimates those 10 because you specialize in sheetrock, you specialize in concrete, you specialize in electrical. So the competition is really not there anyway. And if you're a general, your competition is even more so not there because you just want to get the best price. And so if you put together a really nice team that covers all of the major trades, then you can get the better pricing. And then whoever else comes to them, they bump their stuff up 10% like the white people do us. So we can't compete with them because they have all the relationships. We got to learn to trust each other, build our relationships. And our word is like it was back when my dad and his dad was younger. Our word means something. Right now, our word doesn't mean anything. And people think, okay, well, I got a contract. No, man, we got to look out after us. So we're transitioning now construction into this training piece because it's so, so important. The business side of construction is so important. Once you start growing, if you stay in residential, yeah, there's a lot of forgiveness there. But if you want to move from residential to commercial, then what we try to do is say, learn these techniques in residential, learn this type of terminology in residential so that your learning curve is not so much when you go into the commercial side. When you talk to a company and you start getting larger and they talk about all this paperwork that Kathy was talking about, paperwork is key. You can do the best job in the field. If your paperwork is not right, you're not going to get paid. That's what takes us under. And then if you're not on top of it, so we think a daily report, oh man, I got to do a daily report. Well, we have to start thinking about how do these things help to protect us. That data helps to protect you. When you go to court, the judge doesn't know you, she or he doesn't know them, but they know who has the paperwork together, and typically it's not us. Have your paperwork together. Paperwork is the key to your success. Lastly, we got to start getting our own stuff. So we want to run around and get on all these other projects, and we can do that. But what about developing our own projects so that we start operating from a position of power instead of always a position of, oh, please help me. No, we got our own developments. We want to build our own buildings out. We got a lot of successful Black people. The problem is we don't trust each other. We got to figure out how to build that trust. And then we start building on what we have. And then now all this other stuff is kind of gravy or icing on the cake instead of us. Because if you don't get your own and you figure out how to do your own thing, then we still gonna struggle. All the issues we had, if we wouldn't have bought all the property and all the things that we were able to do, it would have taken us under. The property development is key. And when you have your paperwork together, you understand the business side of it, then you can go up against anyone. That's the other thing. White people, they know who to come after and who not to come after. Your paperwork is right, they're going to respect it, and they're going to move to the next victim, unfortunately. So we just need to get together, move this thing forward, quit talking. We know we need money. We know we need a banking relationship. We know we need staffing. We know we need estimators. So let's figure out how to do it. And history is cool because sometimes the old folks like me, we need to say a little something about history. but we got to keep it moving.
Lynn, tomorrow, you want to come in and chime in real quick, and then we got to go to Kamal.
Okay, I just wanted to say really quickly, off Mark's question earlier to Kathy and I that, yeah, we certainly need to have training in the Baltimore area. And I do see some people saying perhaps the training that Lynn provides on the West Coast can come over here to the East Coast. But I'm going to say, as far as advocacy for our businesses, I think, maybe what Kathy and other folks are fighting is it's more white, but it's more complicated here in Baltimore because our leadership is generally Black. And so the trust and the fear is in there. But what I will say for true advocates and people that really want to make a difference, which is difficult to find here in Baltimore, it takes sacrifice. And sometimes you have to sacrifice your own dollar or to get the right thing done. And it's very difficult to find in our community. Unfortunately, I'm finding a challenge here in Baltimore where you end up fighting alone. So I'm making a plea, that anybody that honestly wants to fight and get things done, I'm acting, but you can't act alone. And I do find myself doing everything by myself because it is difficult to form trust. So trust is very important. We do have to form joint ventures, and that's why we don't do it, because of trust. It's so what I see is a survival attitude and mentality amongst our people, and we're just trying to survive ourselves. That's why we have we have so many resources out there, but we refuse to work together. Even the nonprofits, all out doing the same thing, they're not collaborating. Our businesses are not collaborating. Our leaders are not collaborating. Everybody is out for self. So when it's all said and done, those that are truly willing to sacrifice, Kathy, you're not looking for anything. You have nothing to lose, but everybody feels they have something to lose. And sometimes you've got to lose something to win the greater fight. And that's just all I want to say, is that sometimes you got to lose. You're not going to be popular. You're not going to make the greatest of friends. Kathy, I'm not sitting at the table with the mayor at all every month. So kudos to you for that. But our people, they just don't want to hear it. They don't want to hear it. So it comes down to sacrifice, and all of you advocates on here know that. And sometimes you're going to have to sacrifice for the greater good. And I'm willing to do it, and we're going to do it here in Baltimore. I just can't do it alone. So
hang in there.
Well, tomorrow, you're not alone. Last I checked, I'm right here at your side, sister. Come on, Kamal, because I don't want you to be left out. You got a lot to bring to the table, and we only have a few minutes. Let me just add, although we are struggling, we do have each other. And this call right here is so encouraging to me, because sometimes you got to get outside your comfort zone. You got to go all the way from Baltimore to Oakland to find some soldiers, and I'm willing to do that. Come on, Kamal.
All right. Well, I wholeheartedly agree with what everyone says. It's going to take some sacrifice. We got to look forward, not backwards. I'm happy to work with anybody here to talk about our opportunities at the San Mateo County Transit District, to talk about DB regulations. One thing is a lot of our businesses aren't exposed to these regulations, and they just don't know about it. And like someone mentioned earlier, we're in a survival mentality where it's just, hey, got to go to work, got to get my paycheck, got to come home, cook dinner, do it again the next day. So we do have to kind of do what we can to expose more people to these sort of concepts, the opportunities, and definitely sacrifice. So I'm willing to work with everybody here to do that. Once again, to talk about DB regulations, to talk about decentralized finance as well. I would love to talk to more people in Baltimore about these concepts, because we're moving away from a paper money system. Money is becoming digital with things like Cash App and PayPal. And the thing about it is, we're consumers of those applications and those technologies, but we're not creators. It's just like the construction piece and the development piece. That's why I wrote this book, to expose people to what these things are. You might not be in technology, but these technological concepts are going to start affecting your money. And we can be able to use this technology to do peer-to-peer lending, get rid of credit scores, the things that kind of keep us away from funding each other. And also taking trust out of it. Trust came up earlier too. using this technology, you can create a trustless system where as long as I do what I'm supposed to do, not do what I say I'm going to do, then I get paid. And so everything becomes automated where we're taking the human element out of it. I know part of that is scary, but as long as we can get some sort of a foothold in this early on, we won't be beholden to it, and we can have control ourselves. And once again, be able to move away from the discrimination and the inequity, because a lot of what these things come down to is money and funding, and we can create these protocols ourselves. And once again, it's going to take education. I'm happy to share what I know and what I've learned over the last 8 years independently researching this, because once again, I don't want us to be behind the 8 ball when things become more automated and less human intensive. So thanks again for the platform. Once again, my name is Kamal Hubbard. My book is DeFi for the Diaspora. You can find it at my website, kamalrhubbard.com. And once again, happy to speak with anybody more on these concepts in the future.
And Kamal, thank you for all your help when I was down at BART. When Maceo knew that I knew you, he stepped his game up. So
yeah, well, and same thing, Kathy, if I can help any of your businesses with the opportunities we have at the San Mateo County District, please let me know. This is coming from the top. Our CEO, Carter Mao, who was formerly with BART, he wants more Black businesses to have inclusion and participation on the contracts there. So it's not just me fighting. It's coming from the top that, hey, if we can have more of these opportunities, the opportunities are there. We're open for business.
Kathy, I'm going to ask you to take us on home with our final minute or so.
Well,
with that fire you bring, that and what a skyline! What a skyline! The elementary school, what a skyline!
Well, no, I'm saying skyline. I know you guys don't know this, but I'm a Mississippi girl. I'm from Meridian, Mississippi, but I've been in the Bay Area, did my internship at the Northern California Black Chamber of Commerce. So me coming here is full circle. So I've been in this fight for a long time, working with the CJ Pattersons and Oscar Coffey and all of these people that are no longer here. So I would say today, let today be the beginning that we change our narrative. Let today be the day that we stop not trusting one another, but doing your part and being able, because a lot of times when you don't trust, it may be because of the trickery you got going on. So let's change how you think, change how you work. Let's get this money, work with our Black businesses, and let's do what we need to do. America was built on our backs, so let's get our money back. How about that?
That's my president. You go, girl. You go, girl. And not bye, Felicia. You go, girl. That was excellently and articulately stated. We need to start working together. And speaking of that, Lynn, I'm going to be calling you with Tammy regarding a business opportunity, because you're right. If we don't start trusting each other, and anyway, I'll be talking to you in a couple hours, Lynn. Thank you.
Okay. All right.
I want to say
it's very, very nice to meet everybody. And Mark, even though I would love to get your information as well, if you're sharing it.
Please, Donnie is my brother, my contact. Please go through him and I'll be sure to get it. And I want to say to my sister Tamara, let's not let the month pass without you and Donnie and I, and I'll come to Baltimore and we can sit down and we can begin. This has been great. I've learned a lot. We can start to take some of the examples, particularly that Kathy's been implementing, and come up with a strategy for Baltimore and Prince George's first. So yeah, let's do that.
You know, I'll call you, Mark, and I'll email you, and I'll call you again, and then I'll text you. You know it.
But you know, like the brother said, I'm a little older. You know, I'm slowing the uptake for the social media. But you know, a phone call always works with me. But no, seriously, I think it's time. I'm really glad and proud of what you're trying to do, accomplish in Baltimore. I know it's tough. But I think, you know, now is the time
It is.
Particularly, we hope with the pandemic starting to slow that, you know, and I'm going to ask Donnie to put together a meeting for us in Baltimore and, you know, just have a few people in the room and start to map out a strategy, because, you know, I read the whole Baltimore city landscape as being particularly difficult, but that's a task we got to get to. We just got to.
And you're going to have to leave PG County government and come join us up here. And I appreciate that you're willing to do that. Thank you so much. Thank you.
All right. Good morning and good day, everyone.
All right.
Meeting you, Mark.
Nice meeting you. Nice meeting you.
Bye.
We'll be out to Baltimore in the next 4 to 6 weeks, so I can't